Welcome back to the Greenhorn Photo Taker and episode 2 of 3 with regard to a midsummer California road trip. In episode 1, we crossed the Mojave Desert and into the foothills of the southern Sierra Nevada mountains. In this episode, we'll ascend those mountains and visit the giant sequoia trees and scenic overlooks of both Sequoia National Park and Kings Canyon National Park. I'll admit I've always considered these two national parks secondary to Yosemite, which is widely considered to be the class of the mountainous California parks. In most ways they are inferior, but I also discovered they outshine Yosemite in two distinct ways: the sequoia trees and the mountainous scenic drive. Yosemite of course has both, but their trees in Mariposa Grove are distinctly smaller and fewer, and I argue that the Kings Canyon Scenic Byway is more grand than any drive Yosemite has to offer. Overall, Yosemite has them beat. Their valley is perhaps the finest on Earth, and there are more diverse options for tourists, but I was more than surprised with how great the Southern Sierras are. Before we get to that, however, we do need to talk about two truly elite scenic routes between Lake Isabella and the southern entrance into Sequoia National Park. To get to that entrance, we had three options. 1. First head south to Bakersfield so we could take the main roads through the eastern portion of the Central Valley. 2. Take the mountainous northern route to the valley before heading north. Or 2A, take that mountainous northern route and extend it via White River. Once again we took a gamble and followed Father Google, and this time he did not disappoint. Route 155 was a classic mountain byway with hundreds of turns as it climbed almost 3,500 feet into the, wait for it, Greenhorn Mountains near the town of Alta Sierra. After a small break in the action came Mountain Road 109 and some of the finest pleasures I've ever had driving. Beautiful scenery, excellent curves with no ledges, and hardly anyone else around. Well done. Well done. And both of these full routes will be included in future Scenic Drive videos as well. After some time in the Almond Grove Valley, our route headed back to the mountains for a 7,000-foot climb up the General's Highway to Sequoia National Park. There are a few interesting spots along the way, such as Hospital Rock and Tuttle Rock, but for the most part, the fun is the drive until you get above 6,400 feet where the sequoias grow. Here there are many groves, turnouts, and even scenic portions of the drive that take you right next to these massive trees. It is impossible, at least for me, to show the scale of these trees well. I tried many times in many groves, and while I like some of these photos, none truly do the sequoia tree justice. The largest on the day is also the largest tree in the world by volume, called the General Sherman tree. It stands a whopping 275 feet tall and is over 36 feet in diameter at the base. Think how large that is the next time you're sitting down to dinner and realize the base of the tree is likely larger than the room you're sitting in. This tree started growing sometime around 500 BC before Rome even had emperors. For my money, the best part of Sequoia was Big Tree's Trail in the Giant Forest section. This quick loop of less than 1 mile had dozens of sequoias, all surrounding an open meadow, which gave us constant views to so many trees. It was definitely a trip highlight. All throughout the park, burn scars were a constant reminder of how fire, while very dangerous, is also crucial to a forest's success. In fact, fire is extremely important to a giant sequoia. Fire on the forest floor causes the sequoia cones to dry out, open, and then release their seeds. This ensures that the tree times the release of most of its seeds to coincide with the fire, which creates an ideal condition for regeneration. Our last adventure in Sequoia took us on a hike up Moro Rock. We had planned on this hike, but didn't really know what it was about, and all through the scenic drive earlier in the day, we saw a large, round, protruding rock far above us. As it turns out, Moro is Spanish for rounded hill, so the name was apt. At first the climb was fine, but the steps narrowed the further up we climbed, and many people had to turn back for fear of heights, including my daughter, at about the 3/4 mark. Keep in mind, I was awarded Dad of the Year when she was in middle school, so please remember this before you judge my next actions. She offered to stand put and said I should go on, and undeterred and only thinking of the view, I headed to the top without even a glance back. On my way down, I just couldn't find her. Pulse rising, I tried to remember where I left her, and I even doubled back at one point, knowing it would have been impossible to miss each other on such a narrow staircase, but still trying it anyway. Nothing. Did she get dizzy and fall? I heard no sirens, no screams, no commotion, but she was just nowhere to be found. I picked up my pace, and about halfway down, I just started to hope she was sitting in the parking lot. Of course, in the end, she was sitting in the parking lot, as it was much more comfortable than overlooking a 500-foot drop. The views require the equivalent of walking to the top of a 30-story building. This is absolutely worth it. The views weren't worth those moments of panic, though, and I will never forgive myself for not even asking if she was okay before proceeding up to the top. Absolutely terrible parenting. Deeper into the Sierra Nevadas is Kings Canyon National Park, accessible only via State Route 180, also known as the Kings Canyon Scenic Byway. This byway is an absolute treasure. Descending only about 2,600 feet, it makes up for it with constant views of majestic craggy peaks in all directions. For reference, the Pikes Peak Drive is about 6,700 feet. It can be a bit nerve-wracking with the steep curves and no guardrails, but there are plenty of pullouts if you get tired of any tailgaters. The canyon itself is also beautiful, with Kings Creek flowing alongside and multiple waterfalls to stop at. We took in Grizzly Falls and Roaring River Falls. There's even a somewhat sketchy Motor Nature Tour along a dirt road in the northern section of the valley. Look at that GoPro stabilization. In order to exit the park, you have to ascend back up the Scenic Byway. And at the onset, it does look better on the way up than the way down, but it gets less scenic the higher you journey. In all, our last day in the mountains included 85 miles on scenic mountainous roads before heading into the heat of the San Joaquin Valley and our next hotel in Madera. If you include the incredible drive into Sequoia the day before, it was 180 crazy driving miles in 2 days. And while it was palm sweating and exhausting at times, I wouldn't have changed a thing. Back at the top, there are also many giant sequoia groves to take in, including the General Grant and General Stump Groves. The following day, we planned to cross the Central Valley in our run to the Pacific, where we would enjoy the coastal redwoods and the Pacific Coast Highway.